So we've all seen and used innerHTML to dynamically create content with our JavaScript code, but is it a security risk to use the innerHTML property in this way? If it's so bad, why hasn't it been removed from browsers? Well, the answer to these questions is a little bit more complicated than just yes or no. The idea for this video came from a comment I received a couple of weeks ago on an old video where I guess I must have used the innerHTML property to set some content inside another element. And this comment was basically saying, don't use innerHTML, it's really bad, which, although I'm aware of what could happen when using this in JavaScript code, I didn't think it was a big problem. So in this tutorial, we're going to look into what setting values with innerHTML does, and if it really is all that bad. So you've no doubt seen the innerHTML property in JavaScript. It basically allows you to do two things. First is to get the contents of a particular element in the DOM and return it as a string, or set the contents of a particular element by supplying a string. This differs from other ways of dynamically creating content on a page in that it will preserve any HTML elements, or tags if you like, and render them on the page. So as a quick example, we might want to add some text on the page, but wrap part of it in a strong tag so that that part of it stands out. This is in contrast to some other ways of dynamically creating content, which we'll take a look at a bit later on in the video. But first, let's see what kind of problems this might cause. The reason why you'll see loads of security risk warnings when looking at the innerHTML documentation online is that any HTML elements are valid inside the string that you're providing, including the script tag, which gives you the ability to execute even more JavaScript when the innerHTML contents are rendered. This could be any JavaScript code, like providing an annoying alert, but probably something much worse like stealing cookies, logging keys, or redirecting the user to somewhere they really don't want to be. But this isn't actually as bad as it sounds, and that's down to a browser requirement in the W3C working draft for HTML5, which states script elements inserted using innerHTML do not execute when they are inserted. So that means even if I put a script tag with something malicious inside of the string to set the innerHTML, nothing happens. Anything before the script tag is still rendered, but anything after that is just kind of ignored. However, it is possible for malicious code to get rendered inside of a string that is used with innerHTML. And this can be done with some clever hackery with an image element. Here, the image element will not be able to load the image at the provided location and will cause an on-error event to be triggered. You can then provide some custom code which will run when that happens. It's not like we can use anything else either. The insert adjacent HTML function gives us the same result when we use the same unsafe string. So let's sum this up by saying there is a possibility that malicious code can be run inside the string you provide to innerHTML, so you shouldn't trust anything that's inside that particular string. And that's the key thing that comes down to answering this question of, is innerHTML bad? Trust. Do you trust the string you are going to assign to innerHTML or not? If you're assigning the string to innerHTML yourself, as in you have the contents of the string hard-coded within your JavaScript, then there really isn't any danger. Of course, someone can open up the developer tools of their browser, change the code and make it do whatever they like, but this is really only affecting that one user who is modifying the code on their computer. So in that case, no harm is done and your app and your JavaScript code is safe. However, we've already seen that it is possible to run some malicious code within the string provided to innerHTML, but this is only when the malicious user can get other users of your site or app to render that string. A good example is when the malicious user can insert their own contents into the database of your app, which can then be retrieved and executed by other users. If that happens, then you've got a big problem. The best thing to do is to try not to render any dynamic HTML from a string that has been provided by the user. You can't stop the user from entering potentially unsafe strings into your app or database, but you can output anything the user has provided to you as text, and therefore any HTML elements they've included in their input won't be rendered. This can be done using the inner text or text content properties of an element, or any of the similar functions that are available. If you really need the user to enter HTML content, for example when they're using a rich text editor perhaps, then the user's input needs to be sanitized. And sanitized in this context is just a posh word for cleaning the HTML content of any potentially unsafe code. You'll want to do this on the back end of your app service, so make sure you check out this next video which will show you how you can clean that user input to remove any unwanted HTML content before it's stored in your database.